The sky turned dark on a sunny Tuesday afternoon. At first, people thought it was just another summer storm, but as the darkness spread across the entire planet, everyone knew something was very wrong. Jack Thompson, a young office worker in New York City, looked up from his computer screen. His coworkers were all staring out the window, their faces pale with fear. He joined them, his heart racing as he saw the massive ships appearing in the sky. "What are those things?" someone whispered. Nobody had an answer. The ships were huge, easily the size of small cities. They hovered silently, their dark metal surfaces reflecting no light. Suddenly, all the screens in the office flickered to life. The President of the United States appeared, her face grave. "My fellow Americans and citizens of the world," she began, her voice shaking slightly. "We are under attack by an unknown alien force." Gasps filled the room. Jack felt his legs go weak. Aliens? It seemed impossible, like something out of a movie. The president continued, "I urge everyone to remain calm and follow the instructions of your local authorities. We are mobilizing our military forces and working with other nations to defend our planet." As if on cue, the sound of jets filled the air. Fighter planes zoomed past the office building, heading towards the alien ships. People cheered, but their excitement quickly turned to horror. Beams of bright green light shot out from the alien ships. The fighter jets exploded mid-air, raining debris onto the streets below. Screams erupted from the crowd watching from the office. "We need to get out of here," Jack shouted, snapping out of his shock. He started guiding his coworkers towards the stairs. The elevators would be too dangerous if the power went out. As they rushed down the stairs, the building shook. More explosions could be heard outside. The alien attack was in full swing. On the streets, chaos reigned. People were running in all directions, trying to find safety. Cars honked and crashed as drivers panicked. The sound of sirens mixed with the screams and explosions. Jack looked up and saw more alien ships descending. They were smaller than the first ones, probably meant for ground attacks. His guess was right. The ships started firing at buildings and vehicles, causing massive destruction. Military vehicles rolled into the city, soldiers pouring out to engage the alien forces. But their weapons seemed useless against the advanced alien technology. Tanks fired shells that bounced off the alien ships like pebbles. News reports from around the world showed similar scenes. London, Tokyo, Moscow, Beijing, all were under attack. The aliens had launched a coordinated global invasion. In Washington, D.C., world leaders gathered in an emergency meeting. They tried to contact the aliens to understand why they were attacking. But all attempts at communication failed. The aliens seemed intent on destruction, with no interest in talking. As night fell, the situation looked grim. Major cities around the world were in ruins. Millions of people were dead or missing. The most powerful human weapons had little effect on the alien ships. The president addressed the nation again, her voice stronger this time. "We may have lost the first battle," she said, "but we will not lose this war. Humanity has faced great challenges before, and we have always triumphed. We will find a way to defeat these invaders." Her words gave people hope, but the reality was harsh. As Jack huddled with his coworkers in a makeshift shelter, he wondered what the future held. The human army was falling back, unable to stop the alien advance. The aliens dominated the battlefield, their technology far beyond anything Earth had. But even in this dark hour, the human spirit remained unbroken. In shelters and bunkers around the world, people comforted each other. Scientists worked tirelessly to understand the alien technology. Soldiers prepared for the next battle, determined to protect their home. The invasion had begun, and humanity faced its greatest challenge. But the war was far from over. The true test of human courage and resilience was just beginning. 2 weeks after the alien invasion began, the world was a different place. Major cities lay in ruins, but humanity wasn't giving up. In a secret underground base near what used to be Chicago, General Sarah Chen looked at a map of Earth. Red dots showed where the aliens had taken control. There were too many red dots. "We can't keep fighting like this," she said to the room full of military leaders from around the world. "We need a new plan." A Russian general nodded. "Our weapons are useless against their ships. We lose 10 soldiers for every alien we manage to kill." Just then, a young soldier burst into the room. "General Chen, we've got a message from the Australian resistance. They've managed to bring down an alien ship." The room erupted in cheers. It was the first good news in days. "How did they do it?" General Chen asked, her eyes bright with hope. The soldier handed her a tablet. "They used an old electromagnetic pulse weapon. It shut down the ship's systems long enough for their ground forces to attack." For the first time since the invasion, the military leaders smiled. They had found a weakness. Meanwhile, in a small town in Brazil, Maria Silva watched as a group of farmers turned their tractors into makeshift tanks. They'd welded metal plates to the sides and mounted guns on top. "It's not much," said her father, wiping sweat from his forehead. "But it's better than nothing." Maria nodded. She had seen the alien ships fly over their town yesterday. It was only a matter of time before they attacked. As if reading her thoughts, the sound of explosions filled the air. The aliens had arrived. "Everyone, get ready," shouted Maria's father. The farmers climbed into their tractor tanks, determination on their faces. The battle was fierce. The farmers used their knowledge of the land to their advantage, hiding in ditches and behind hills. They managed to surprise the alien ground forces, taking out several before retreating. Similar scenes played out across the globe. In the mountains of Afghanistan, old fighters who had once battled human enemies now turned their guerrilla tactics against the aliens. In the cities of Europe, resistance groups used the rubble of destroyed buildings as cover, ambushing alien patrols. Back in the underground base, General Chen received reports from around the world. The news was mixed. Humanity was fighting back, but the costs were high. "We've lost contact with Japan," a communications officer reported. Their last message said the aliens were pushing towards Tokyo. General Chen closed her eyes for a moment. Another country lost. But she couldn't give up. "What about the EMP weapons?" she asked. A scientist stepped forward. "We're modifying them as fast as we can, but we don't have enough. And the aliens are learning. They're starting to shield their ships." Just then, alarms blared through the base. "Alien ships detected." Someone shouted. "They found us." General Chen sprang into action. "Evacuate the base. Get everyone to the backup location." As people rushed to escape, Chen and a small team stayed behind to delete all their data. They couldn't let it fall into alien hands. The ground shook as alien weapons hit the surface above them. Dust fell from the ceiling. "That's it," said Chen, looking at the now blank screens. "Let's go." They ran through the corridors, the sound of destruction getting closer. Just as they reached the escape tunnels, a massive explosion rocked the base. The ceiling began to collapse. Chen pushed the last of her team into the tunnel. "Go. I'll hold them off." Despite their protests, she sealed the tunnel entrance. Turning to face the coming aliens, she drew her weapon. She might not survive, but she would give her people a chance to escape and keep fighting. As the dust settled and alien shadows appeared, General Chen stood tall. The human resistance had suffered a blow, but it wasn't defeated. All around the world, people like her were fighting back. Humanity wouldn't fall easily. The world map in the new emergency command center was mostly red now. Colonel Jake Harper stared at it, his face grim. Each red area showed where the aliens had taken control. The few remaining blue spots were shrinking fast. "We can't hold them back anymore," he said to the room full of tired soldiers and leaders. "We need to retreat." A murmur of disagreement filled the room, but deep down, everyone knew he was right. They had been fighting for months, but the aliens were too strong. "Where can we go?" asked a young lieutenant, her voice shaking. They're everywhere. Colonel Harper pointed to the map. Underground. The mountains. Anywhere we can hide and regroup. The plan was set in motion. All around the world, the order went out. Fall back. Retreat to safe zones. The Great Retreat had begun. In what was left of New York City, Sarah Lee helped load supplies onto trucks. The aliens had destroyed most of the city, but the subway tunnels were still safe. For now. Hurry, she shouted as another explosion rocked the ground above. We don't have much time. Families rushed past her, carrying what little they could. Children cried, scared by the noise and chaos. Sarah saw an old man struggling with a heavy bag and ran to help him. Thank you. He wheezed as she took the bag. I couldn't leave my books behind. Knowledge is all we have left. Sarah nodded, understanding. As they hurried towards the subway entrance, she looked back at the ruined city. The alien ships hovered overhead, their strange humming filling the air. Meanwhile, in the Rocky Mountains, a long line of vehicles wound its way up steep roads. John Martinez guided his old pickup truck carefully, glancing at his wife and two kids huddled in the seat next to him. Are we going to be safe, Dad? His daughter asked, her eyes wide with fear. John forced a smile. Yes, sweetie. The aliens can't follow us up here. He hoped he was right. The military had set up a hidden base high in the mountains. It was one of the last safe places left. As they rounded a bend, John saw the entrance to the base. Soldiers were directing traffic, hurrying people inside. Just then, a sound made his heart stop. The alien ships were coming. Everyone out. He yelled, grabbing his kids. They ran towards the base entrance as fast as they could. Behind them, green beams of light sliced through the air. Cars exploded. People screamed. John and his family dove into the base just as the heavy doors slammed shut. Inside, it was chaos. Thousands of people were crammed into the mountain base, scared and confused. Military personnel tried to keep order, directing families to living areas and organizing supplies. In a control room deep inside the mountain, Colonel Harper watched video feeds from around the world. The scenes were all similar. Humans in retreat, aliens advancing. A message came in from Europe. The last major city, Berlin, had fallen. The European forces were scattering to the Alps and the forests of Eastern Europe. From Asia, reports showed millions of people fleeing to the Himalayas and the Siberian wilderness. In Africa, resistance groups were disappearing into the jungles and deserts. Colonel Harper rubbed his tired eyes. This wasn't how it was supposed to be. Humans were the ones who explored space in the movies. They were the ones who made contact with aliens. They weren't supposed to be hiding in holes in the ground on their own planet. But this was their reality now. The Great Retreat was humanity's last hope. By hiding, by going underground and into the wild places, they might survive. They might find a way to fight back. As the last reports came in, Colonel Harper made a decision. He picked up a microphone, connected to all the remaining human outposts around the world. "This is Colonel Harper," he said, his voice strong despite his exhaustion. "The Great Retreat is complete. Now we plan. Now we prepare. The aliens may have won the battles, but the war isn't over. Stay strong. Stay hidden. Humanity will rise again. In bases and bunkers, in mountain hideouts and underground cities, people listened. They were scared. They were beaten. But they weren't defeated. The human spirit was battered, but not broken. The Great Retreat was not the end. It was just the beginning of humanity's greatest fight. Dr. Emily Chen rubbed her tired eyes as she peered into a microscope. For months, she and a small team of scientists had been studying alien technology in a hidden lab deep under the Australian outback. They were looking for anything that might give humans an edge in the war. Suddenly, Emily sat up straight. "I don't believe it," she whispered. Her colleague, Dr. Amir Patel, looked up from his computer. "What is it?" Emily waved him over excitedly. "Look at this alien metal under ultraviolet light. Amir peered into the microscope. His eyes widened. "It's changing." Emily nodded. "The molecular structure is destabilizing. I think we found something big." Miles away, in what used to be downtown Sydney, Captain Mark Thompson led a small team of soldiers on a risky mission. They crept through the ruins, always on alert for alien patrols. "There," Mark whispered, pointing to a crashed alien scout ship. "That's our target." The team moved quickly, attaching devices to the ship's hull. These were prototypes based on Dr. Chen's latest research. If they worked, it could change everything. Suddenly, an alien screech filled the air. They'd been spotted. "Run!" Mark yelled. The team sprinted away as alien weapons fire lit up the night. Back in the lab, Emily and Amir waited anxiously for news. When their communication device crackled to life, they held their breath. "This is Captain Thompson," came the static-filled voice. "Mission accomplished. The devices are in place." Emily let out a cheer. "Activate them now," she said into the mic. In Sydney, Mark and his team watched from a safe distance. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then, slowly, the alien ship began to change color. Its sleek surface turned dull, then started to crumble. "It's working," Mark breathed in amazement. The alien patrol returned, screeching in what sounded like panic as they saw their ship disintegrating. They tried to save it, but as soon as they touched the hull, their own armor began to fail. In the lab, Emily and Amir high-fived each other. "We did it," Amir shouted. "We found their weakness." Emily was already reaching for her tablet. "We need to tell everyone. This could turn the tide of the war." As word spread, hope began to return to the hidden human communities. In the Rocky Mountain base, Colonel Harper called an emergency meeting. "Dr. Chen's team has made a breakthrough," he announced to the crowded room. "The aliens' technology has a critical flaw. Under certain conditions, their metals become unstable." Excited whispers filled the air. For the first time in months, people dared to smile. But Colonel Harper continued, raising his hand for quiet. "We still face challenges. We need to produce enough of these devices to make a difference, and we need to get close enough to use them." In the following weeks, hidden factories sprang into action. Every scrap of material was put to use making Emily's devices. People worked around the clock, energized by the new hope. Meanwhile, military leaders planned their counterattack. They would need to be smart and coordinated to take on the still powerful alien forces. In her lab, Emily worked tirelessly to improve the device. "If we can increase the range," she muttered to herself, "we might be able to affect their ships in the air." Amir brought her a cup of coffee. "You need to rest," he said gently. Emily shook her head. "No time. The aliens have started to adapt. They're trying to shield their tech." Across the world, the news spread in whispers and secret messages. A weakness had been found. Humanity had a chance. In the Australian outback, Mark and his team prepared for another mission. This time, they were going after a bigger target, an alien command center. As they geared up, Mark looked at his soldiers. "This won't be easy," he said. "But remember, for the first time, we have a real weapon against them. We can win this." The soldiers nodded, determination in their eyes. They had seen their world destroyed, their people scattered. But now, they had hope. They had a way to fight back. As the team moved out into the night, the stars shone brightly overhead. Somewhere up there, the main alien fleet waited, unaware that their invincible technology had a fatal flaw. The tide of the war was about to turn. The dense Amazon rainforest was alive with sounds, but not all of them were natural. Hidden beneath the thick canopy, Maria Silva and her team of resistance fighters moved silently through the undergrowth. They were tracking an alien patrol that had ventured too far from its base. "Remember," Maria whispered to her team, "we hit fast and disappear even faster." The aliens had superior technology, but they weren't adapted to Earth's diverse environments. Here in the jungle, the humans had the advantage. Suddenly, Maria raised her fist, signaling everyone to stop. Through the leaves, they could see the alien patrol. The strange, six-limbed creatures moved awkwardly in the humid forest, their armor clearly not designed for this terrain. Maria nodded to her team. They activated their homemade EMP devices, smaller versions of Dr. Chen's invention. In an instant, the aliens' weapons and communication gear went dead. Before the aliens could react, Maria's team struck. Arrows, spears, and jury-rigged guns took down the confused invaders. Within minutes, it was over. "Quick, grab their tech and let's go," Maria ordered. They couldn't stay in one place for long. As they melted back into the forest, Maria allowed herself a small smile. Another successful hit-and-run attack. Small victories like these were happening all over the world. In the snowy peaks of the Himalayas, former Sherpa guide Tenzin Norbu led a group of climbers-turned-warriors. They used their knowledge of the treacherous mountain passes to ambush alien supply lines. "The cold is our ally," Tenzin told his team as they prepared for another raid. "The aliens hate it even more than we do." They watched as an alien transport hovered slowly through a narrow pass. At Tenzin's signal, they triggered an avalanche. The alien ship, caught off guard, crashed into the valley below. "Move in, but be careful," Tenzin warned. "We need those supplies intact." In the scorching deserts of the Sahara, Omar Hassan and his band of nomads became the ghosts of the dunes. They used sandstorms as cover, striking alien outposts and disappearing before reinforcements could arrive. One night, as they huddled around a small fire, Omar studied a makeshift map. "Their water reserves are running low," he said. "They never expected to fight a war in the desert." His second-in-command nodded. "And every day, more of their equipment fails in the sand and heat." In the ruins of old cities, urban resistance groups turned the rubble into deadly mazes. They used underground tunnels and collapsed buildings to their advantage, setting traps and launching surprise attacks. In what was once New York City, Sarah Lee led a group through the subway system. They emerged in the basement of a building near an alien command post. "Plant the devices and get out," Sarah instructed. "We have 5 minutes before they detect us." Her team worked quickly, attaching EMP bombs to key structural points. As they retreated, they heard the satisfying sound of explosions and alien screeches of confusion. Back in the Rocky Mountain base, Colonel Harper received reports from around the world. Each one brought news of small victories, of humans using their knowledge of Earth's environments to outsmart the aliens. "It's working," he told his staff. "We're bleeding them slowly, making them fight on our terms." But the colonel knew they couldn't celebrate yet. The aliens still held air superiority, and their main fleet remained in orbit, untouched. In her lab, Dr. Emily Chen worked feverishly on a new project. "If we can expand the range of our EMP technology," she explained to Amir, "we might be able to target their ships in low orbit." Amar looked skeptical. "But how would we deliver it? We can't exactly climb up there." Emily grinned. "No, but we can make them come to us." As night fell around the world, the guerrilla war continued. In jungles and mountains, deserts and cities, humans fought back with cunning and determination. They were outgunned and outnumbered, but they refused to give up their home. The aliens, once so confident in their superior technology, found themselves frustrated at every turn. Earth, it seemed, would not fall easily. And its people, these stubborn, resourceful humans, were proving to be far more troublesome than they had ever imagined. The war was far from over, but for the first time since the invasion began, humanity was starting to believe they had a chance. The spirit of resistance burned bright, fueled by each small victory and the hope of eventual freedom. The sky above what used to be Beijing was filled with alien ships. On the ground, the last major human army gathered. Soldiers from every corner of the world stood side by side, ready for what might be their final battle. General Lai Wei looked out over the sea of faces. Some were scared, others determined. All knew what was at stake. Today, he shouted, his voice carried by speakers, we fight not just for our lives, but for our planet, for our future. A cheer went up from the crowd. In the front row, Maria Silva from the Amazon, Tenzin Norbu from the Himalayas, and Omar Hassan from the Sahara nodded to each other. Their guerrilla tactics had bought humanity time. Now it was time for the big push. Miles away, in a hidden bunker, Dr. Emily Chen made final adjustments to her latest invention. It was a massive EMP device, powerful enough to affect the alien ships in low orbit. It's ready, she told Colonel Harper over the video link. But we only have one shot at this. The colonel nodded grimly. Then we better make it count. Back on the battlefield, the human army moved into position. They had tanks, jets, and every weapon they could salvage or create. But their secret weapon was hidden underground, waiting for the right moment. Suddenly, the alien ships began to descend. The air filled with a terrible humming sound. Hold your positions, General Lai shouted. Wait for my signal. The aliens struck first, green beams of energy slicing through the air. Human tanks exploded. Soldiers scattered for cover. It seemed like the battle might be over before it truly began. But then, a squadron of jets appeared from behind a mountain range. They were carrying special missiles, equipped with smaller versions of Dr. Chen's device. Now, General Lei commanded. The jets launched their payload. Most were shot down, but a few missiles found their targets. Alien ships began to falter, their systems disrupted by the EMP blasts. On the ground, Maria led a team carrying portable EMP devices. They targeted alien ground troops, disabling their weapons and armor. Push forward, she yelled, firing her own weapon. Tenzin and his mountain fighters used grappling hooks to climb onto the hulls of the lower flying ships. They planted EMP bombs, jumping clear as the alien crafts crashed to the ground. Omar and his desert warriors emerged from hidden tunnels, ambushing alien units from behind. Their sand-colored uniforms made them almost invisible in the dusty battlefield. For a moment, it seemed like humanity might have a chance. But then, more alien ships appeared on the horizon. The main fleet was joining the battle. In her bunker, Emily watched the video feed with growing horror. There are too many, she whispered. Colonel Harper's voice crackled over the comm. It's time, Dr. Chen. Activate the main device. Emily hesitated. If this didn't work, they would lose their last chance. But there was no other choice. She took a deep breath and pressed the button. For a second, nothing happened. Then, a massive pulse of energy burst from the ground beneath the battlefield. It expanded outward and upward, engulfing everything in its path. Human electronics, shielded by Emily's design, remained functional, but the alien ships began to fall from the sky like dead flies. Their ground troops stumbled, their weapons and armor suddenly useless. A cheer went up from the human army. They surged forward, taking advantage of the aliens' confusion. General Li's voice boomed across the battlefield. This is our chance. For Earth. The battle raged on, but now the tide had turned. Humans fought with renewed energy, pushing the aliens back step by step. In orbit, the main alien fleet tried to retreat, but many ships were caught in Earth's gravity, their systems fried by the EMP blast. They fell into the atmosphere, burning up like meteors. As the sun began to set, the dust settled on the battlefield. Exhausted but victorious, human soldiers looked up at a sky free of alien ships for the first time in months. In her bunker, Emily collapsed into a chair, tears of relief streaming down her face. They had done it. They had turned the tide. But the war wasn't over yet. As reports came in from around the world, one thing became clear. This was just the beginning of humanity's counterattack. The final push to reclaim their world was about to begin. The sun rose over a changed Earth. Smoke still rose from battlefields around the world, but for the first time in over a year, humans woke up with hope in their hearts. In the command center of the Rocky Mountain base, Colonel Harper studied the global map. Blue areas, representing human-controlled territories, were expanding rapidly. "We've retaken most of North America and Europe," he announced to the cheering staff. "Asia and Africa are pushing the aliens back. Australia and South America are almost completely free." Dr. Emily Chen, bags under her eyes from days without sleep, smiled tiredly. "The EMP technology worked better than we hoped. Most of their ships are grounded." But the colonel's face remained serious. "We can't celebrate yet. The alien leadership is still out there, and they're not giving up easily." On the outskirts of what used to be Tokyo, Captain Akira Tanaka led a team through the ruins. They were hunting the alien command unit that had fled the city. "Stay alert," Akira whispered. "They're desperate now. That makes them even more dangerous." Suddenly, a screeching sound filled the air. A group of aliens burst from a collapsed building, firing wildly. Akira's team reacted instantly, their weapons and EMP devices making short work of the aliens. But as the dust settled, they realized one alien was different from the rest. "That's their leader," Akira shouted. "Capture it alive." After a fierce struggle, they managed to subdue the alien commander. This was a turning point, the first high-ranking alien to be captured. Meanwhile, in orbit, the International Space Station had become humanity's eyes in the sky. A team of astronauts, led by Commander Maria Rodriguez, worked tirelessly to track the remaining alien ships. "We've spotted their main command ship," Maria reported to Earth. "It's hiding behind the moon, probably planning a counterattack." In response, a daring plan was set in motion. Around the world, teams of engineers and scientists worked to retrofit human spacecraft with the new anti-alien technology. At Cape Canaveral, now a heavily fortified base, the first of these new ships prepared for launch. Its mission: to take the fight to the aliens in space. As the countdown began, pilot John Chen, no relation to Dr. Emily Chen, strapped himself in. He thought of his family, hidden in an underground city, and of all humanity had lost. His jaw set with determination. "We have liftoff," Mission Control announced. The ship roared into the sky, carrying humanity's hopes with it. For the first time, humans were taking the battle to the aliens' home turf, space. Back on Earth, the captured alien commander was being interrogated. Dr. Emily Chen led the team trying to communicate with it. After days of effort, they made a breakthrough. The aliens' message was clear. They had underestimated humans. They had thought Earth would be an easy conquest, but instead, they had met fierce resistance. They're considering retreat, Emily told the world leaders in an emergency video conference. But they're also afraid we'll follow them home and do to their planet what they tried to do to ours. The revelation sparked intense debate. Some wanted to push the advantage and destroy the aliens completely. Others argued for a negotiated peace. In the end, humanity's better nature won out. They would offer the aliens a chance to leave peacefully, but make it clear that any future aggression would be met with overwhelming force. As dawn broke on the 100th day since the Great Victory, humans around the world gathered to watch the sky. The remaining alien ships, under heavy human escort, were leaving Earth's atmosphere. In New York, Sarah Lee held her breath as she watched the ships shrink to tiny points of light. In the Amazon, Maria Silva hugged her fellow fighters. In the Himalayas, Tenzin Norbu said a quiet prayer of thanks. At the Rocky Mountain base, Colonel Harper and Dr. Chen stood side by side, watching the monitors. "It's really over," Emily said, tears in her eyes. The colonel nodded. "This part is. Now comes the hard part, rebuilding our world." As the last alien ship disappeared from view, a cheer went up around the globe. Humanity had faced its greatest challenge and emerged victorious. They had lost much, but gained something precious, a new unity and purpose. The stars no longer seemed like distant, unreachable points of light. They were a challenge, a frontier to be explored. And humanity, tested by fire, was ready to meet that challenge. The war was over. The future was just beginning.